If you own a small business and you might be looking to sell, you could run into some major issues. Forbes estimates that 9 out of 10 businesses listed never actually sell. Why? Because there's only one way to sell. You need to do these 4 steps first. So if you want to be a part of the 10% of businesses that sell for profits, we've created a free checklist for you so you can sell without those hurdles that normally hold you back. Download the free checklist by visiting www.abundantculture.co/checklist.
Welcome back to the Abundant Culture Podcast, where business owners like you come to learn how to grow the valuation of their companies so they can sell in the future. On this show, you'll learn how to sell for top dollar and invest in profitable businesses around the country. Now, here are your hosts, Jazz and Joe.
Hey everybody, it's Joe. Welcome back to the Abundant Culture Podcast. We're so glad to have you back again this week. Today, we are interviewing somebody who has literally found a way to monetize relationships. You heard that correctly. He makes money off of helping other people make friends, make business connections, get referrals, and things of that nature. So today we're actually going to be talking about his group that he started. We're going to be talking about how to create long-lasting business relationships that will continue to help you for a very, very long time. We're going to talk about how to actually network if you're somebody who's not necessarily used to doing that sort of thing. So get ready to listen to and learn from our good friend, Frank Agin.
Hi, Frank, and thank you again for coming onto the Abundant Culture Podcast. We are super excited to have you today because you and I talked a couple weeks ago. You came from a referral from a really good friend of ours, so we know that you do excellent work just already. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of the episode, we have to ask you, what is your business? Tell us more about it. Like, how'd you even get into it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let me take you back a little bit in time. I live in Columbus, Ohio, and I came here. I'm not from here. I came here to go to law school. I have a law degree. I have an MBA. I have a CP. I have more letters after my name than I have in my name. And I started my career as a tax consultant with a really large accounting firm, one of the big 4. Great job, great prestige, great pay, great everything. If you like to do taxes. I just didn't want to do taxes for the rest of my life. So I decided to leave, and this was in the mid-90s. I decided to leave to go into private practice, the private practice of law. And I tell people that a funny thing happened to me when I went into the private practice of law. And the funny thing was that nothing happened. I had no idea how to get clients. Because when you work in a big firm like that, they just hand you the work. You come in and do the work and they just hand it to you. And it doesn't work that way in the small business world, as you know, and most of your listeners know. So I struggled for about 3 or 4 weeks trying to figure out how to make this go. And I was scared. I was like, I don't want to fail. I could probably go get a job, but I didn't want to do that. So at any rate, I asked a friend of mine who had taken a different path out of law school. She had started her own firm and was somewhat successful. And I said, what do you recommend I do to be successful? And she said, you need to get into a tips club or a leads group. And I didn't really know what she was talking about, but she introduced me to a group of people that put together these chapters of entrepreneurs, sales reps, and professionals. And if people out there are familiar with BNI, it's very similar to BNI. It was founded by a woman out of Pittsburgh. And as soon as I heard about it and was sitting in the meeting, it made total sense to me that I could lift up my whole world by just helping other people. And that's the whole notion behind these things is you help the people sitting around the room and trust that they'll return the favor. And they do. So I got really involved in that chapter. I became its first president. I became the organization's first franchisee. And then a few years after that, had the opportunity to buy the business out. And that was in the early 2000s. And I stopped the practice of law, rebranded the organization as MSpirit Business Connections. MSpirit short for American Spirit. What we do is we help people generate referrals through these weekly meetings. And I have franchisees around the country and continue to try and find franchisees in different areas. So more or less, that's what I do is I help people who are in small business America, entrepreneurs, sales reps, professionals, help them get involved in these weekly meetings to learn about each other and develop relationships. From that, I've written a number of books just because I've found myself being a continual student of networking and learning and trying to be more successful with it. And then that's turned into podcasts and articles and appearances on podcasts and speeches and the whole 9 yards. So that's me.
Awesome.
That is awesome.
So can you tell us a little bit more about the experience of you buying the franchise and rebranding it? Because we really don't get a lot of people on the podcast, as of yet anyway, to actually buy businesses. So can you tell us a little bit more about that experience?
Yeah, it's, she was at a point, the woman I bought it from, she was at a point where she was really kind of looking to downsize. And I have an entrepreneurial heart. You guys have an entrepreneurial heart, right? I mean, I always joke about it. Nobody's going to hire us, right? Nobody wants to
No.
hire us, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Because we would ask that we would be questioning everything. We work
Right.
hard, they would want to have us, but we don't want to work for them, and they know we don't want to work for them.
Right.
So, in being the franchisee, I looked at the business and it's like, yeah, I really like this. I really like this. And so her and I had conversations. And so there is let me step back. The type of law that I practiced was helping people buy and sell businesses. So I had a lot of experience in knowing what something was worth. And when she was sharing with me what the franchise opportunity was about, because what had happened was I was president of a chapter. I was doing really well with my chapter. And so her and I would have conversations. Well, how are you doing this? Can you help this other group? And there was a guy locally who was supposed to be doing a lot of things I was doing, and she was always leaning on me. And so he upped and quit at one point. And so I just said to her, well, what are you going to do? And she said, well, to be honest, I would really like to franchise them. And so as she's sharing with me all the ins and the outs of what it would cost to, what it would cost to buy the franchise, what you had to do, I'm literally working a calculator on the other end of the phone. This is pre-email, pre-cell phone, working a calculator. And in that conversation, I said, I'll do it. I just knew I knew it was something I wanted to do. And that is so true, that you need to have a passion. You can't just buy a business because it's going to make you money, because it'll burn you out, right? Nothing's easy. You got to put the time in. I knew I had a passion for it. I knew a lot of the other people in the organization. I had a vision as to what it could be. And so that's why I told her in that call, I'll do it. I'll be your first franchisee. And then 15 days later, I took over. I mean, there was a lot to looking at documents and things like that. And for those who don't know, I don't want to get too far off in the weeds, but franchising is very regulated by the federal government. It's very regulated by the state of Indiana, the state of Illinois. Some states just follow the federal rules, but a states like Indiana and Illinois, they have more stringent rules. So you got to kind of go through all that stuff. But once I franchised, I was working with her, and things just really started to explode. I had an investment. No one else in the organization had an investment like I did, and I wasn't going to lose that investment. So I was really working hard. And then at one point we just, we decided that it would be best that my operation was bigger than half her operation. So she was going to keep some and I was going to take mine, and I had to rebrand it, and I wanted to rebrand it. She had a name that was the name of the business was so generic that it was confusing. And so I wanted something that I could federally trademark. I mean, that's something that if people listening, if you have a business, it should have something that you can trademark, something that you can sell. That's why they name their businesses after themselves. Well, when you go to sell the business, you can't use your own name. It just, it doesn't make sense. So you want to build value in something that will last. And that's the name MSpirit was something, again, short for American Spirit, was something that I had come up with when I was in law school. I had this notion of selling a line of all American made sportswear. And it never really went anywhere, but I had the name and it was federally trademarked. And so I've been, I just used that and started building value around that.
That's really awesome.
It is.
And I never even thought about the idea of making sure that you can actually trademark the business name that you're using. That is something that we now have to look into.
Yes.
Because that makes so much sense now that you explain it. I see why you all have all the letters after your name now.
Yeah. Well, people do screw up. I mean, they don't mean to, but they're doing business, and all of a sudden somebody comes out of nowhere and says, sorry, you can't use that name. I already have it. And a great example of it is McDonald's, right? You have Big Mac, you've got McChicken, you've got Mick, everything. Why don't they have a McHappy Meal? The reason they don't have a McHappy meal is that there's a small donut shop in Marietta, Ohio, and as well as West Virginia, that's called McHappy's. And so they have prevented McDonald's from using the name McHappy for the Happy Meal. And there was an ongoing fight. It's all been settled now. I mean, it's just basically the donut shop is like, no, we are not giving up this name. We don't care how much money. We make plenty of money. It's a matter of principle. But that was something that McDonald's didn't, they didn't cross their T and dot their I on that one. And they started this McHappy Meal thing and it never went anywhere for that reason. So there's your lesson.
I did not know that. That's super interesting.
That is.
So when it comes to a small business owner, such as yourself, I mean, I think with one of these MSpirit franchises, if somebody wants to participate in that, as somebody just who comes out to network and build these connections on a weekly basis, is it mainly for B2B businesses, or can it also help B2C businesses who have just regular consumer customers?
We have a mix, and I think the best way, Joseph, is to kind of give, some examples. For example, a realtor. We have lots of realtors. We have lots of mortgage lenders. We have lots of property casualty people. Those are kind of B2C, Mary Kay reps. The retail shop that's on the street, probably not a good fit for us because they're really relying on people coming in. But we do have a lot of B2B as well. And so I have some chapters that are exclusively B2B and some that I don't want to say are exclusively B2C, but primarily B2C. And then we have chapters that are kind of a blend of those two. They sort of just come together organically, depending upon who's been invited and who's already in there.
Cool. So is that how most people actually show up? Like, because I haven't heard MSpirit, which is pretty surprising to me because I used to go to a ton of networking events a while back ago. I heard of BNI and I don't even remember how I heard of them. It was probably through referral, I think. But is it mostly through referral? It just grows organically through people saying, hey, I go to this group every single week. Here's the type of people we have here. Would it be something that you'd be interested in coming out to as well?
Yeah, it's people ask me all the time, hey, would you advertise here? Would you do this? And I'm like, you know what? I teach my members how to generate word of mouth referrals. I'm not going to do anything other than that. And so how I find franchisees, how we find members for the organization is that the members invite people in. So somebody will come to me and say, hey, I want to start a chapter. I'm a realtor. I want to start a chapter in my community. Great. And I'll meet with them, or one of the franchisees will meet with them and say, this is what you need to do. Who else do you know that you would want to have in this group with you? And so they'll say, well, I've got a mortgage lender and a property casualty person. Great, let's get them together. Let's have a conversation. And we just keep asking that question, who else do we want to invite in? And it kind of grows somewhat organically that way. Same thing with franchising. I have a couple great franchisees in the northern suburbs of Chicago, Kayleen Marshall and Paula Ankley, and they were referred to me. Well, it was a member introduced me to somebody who introduced me to somebody else who ultimately introduced me to them. And so it's all just a series of introductions that makes it happen.
That's really awesome. I think word of mouth is some of the most synergistic type of marketing out there. It's like, you could throw a ton of money into something and probably get a bunch of leads back, but I think the quality of word of mouth is always really good. Right. I don't think I've really had a bad experience with word of mouth that I know.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Anytime I've advertised or sponsored something, unless I can have an active role in meeting people, right? I'm sponsoring a conference that's going to be out in, it's virtual. It's called Conference 21. I'm a sponsor of that, and I'm getting to meet all these speakers, and that's great because that's helping me network. But anytime I've put money at something, hey, you get to have a banner on our website. The moment I send that check, I just have this feeling in my gut that that money's wasted, right? Nothing will ever come from it. And nothing ever has. So it's all word of mouth. It's all networking. It's all relationships, right? I mean, I was referred to you guys. Was it Rotimi? Is that? Yeah. It's all relationships. He trusts you. I assume he trusts me, to put us together. And here we are.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you don't mind, kind of share with us. I mean, because you have these things all over the country, one of the things I was really wondering about is exactly how does the business actually generate revenue? Is it kind of like a membership fee? Is it sponsored? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a membership fee. People pay to belong. They pay a one-time initiation fee. The fees at this point are $275, and then it's $85 a quarter thereafter. And then everybody's paying their own fee, and that's really it. We don't, people come to me and want to sponsor things. People come to me and want me to try and earn affiliate dollars by selling things to the members, and we always say no to that. People come to this organization because they want to network with people. They don't come to the organization so we can pitch them on other things. So it's strictly the membership fee. All of our franchisees do something else. So for a couple hours in the morning, they're running the franchise, but the rest of the time they're web designers, attorneys, accountants, realtors, coaches, consultants, and they really kind of use the organization. They make money from running it, but they use the organization to network their other business as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all driven off those membership fees.
And if a business owner wanted to be a part of a couple of these groups, could they pay just multiple fees to be part of multiple groups?
They can. We have nothing in our rules that says you can't do that. But I always, when somebody comes to me and wants to do, they're all excited. Hey, this one group worked great. What if I got in two? I always tell them you got to pay two fees. But I'm telling you right now that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. 1 + 1 in this situation equals something less than 1. And what I always use, I got a married couple on here. Joseph, if I came to you and said, what do you think Jazz would say if you said, hey, would you mind if I had another wife? Would that be okay? What would you say, Jazz? You'd be like, no way. No way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not happening. And it's the same thing when people are in two groups, both sides are questioning the loyalty. And I've seen it, okay?
Yeah.
And they end up doing worse. And so I always tell people, listen, dial into the one group and really make that work. Now, in our organization, we have a lot of opportunities where people can network with people in other groups, but they're not kind of in that group, if you will.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. And plus having multiple wives will be way more expensive than having to pay
It
two.
would be confusing. Yes. That would be. We're not going down that path. I am not.
So what makes a business relationship like a high quality relationship? Because I feel like, kind of like you were saying, like when you're a part of one group, you can really dig deep and dive deeper into the relationship. So like, are there qualities that make a high quality business relationship?
Yeah. You know what? I always tell people we're humans, right? And humans didn't arrive on this planet 30 years ago, right? We go back thousands and thousands of years. And it doesn't matter your race, your gender, religion. It doesn't matter any of those things. We lived in small tribes or clans of about 100, 150 people, and that was generally the only people you saw. And to be a part of that clan or tribe or whatever you want to call it, to be a part of that, you had to contribute. If you didn't contribute, if you were a freeloader, you were done. You were out. And if you were out on your own, you could not survive. So as humans, we are hardwired to contribute and give to others. So kind of fast forwarding to where we're at right now, we still operate with that same DNA. And to be successful, whether you're in one of these groups or just in any community, you need to contribute to the people around you. And so, Jazz, you asked that question. It's really what makes a great relationship is somebody who is willing to contribute to others and not really expect anything in return, just trusting it's going to come back to them. And when I say giving to others, it could be referrals. It could be business referrals. It could be introductions to others. Hey, you need guests for your podcast or you want to be on a podcast. I tell people in this day and age with social media, you can be a tremendous support to somebody just by liking and commenting on their posts, and supporting them in that way. So it's really, those are the things that endear us to one another. And when you do something for somebody, you can't help, or if somebody does something for you, let me put it this way. If somebody does something for you, your brain is immediately focused in on them. You may not, it's subconsciously kind of spinning around. And Rotimi, I guess the backstory is I had done something for Rotimi. I had somebody contact me and said, hey, do you know somebody who does websites? Well, I do. right? And he was kind of up in that area, and I figured Rotimi would be a great person for it. So I connected them, and he was totally taken back by that. What happened? His brain just started thinking, okay, how can I help Frank? And it was, I'll guarantee you, it was all very subconscious, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he seized upon, hey, I should connect these people. And so, you ask the question, how do you be successful? Got to contribute. You've got to get involved, get involved in your church, get involved in the community, the kids' school. Those are the things that people look for. Not consciously, but they notice those things. Oh my God, Joseph's, he coaches T-ball. That's what a cool guy, right? And they may not care about T-ball at all, but they just see that you've got a kind heart. And so, and this all kind of harkens back to, when we were just much simpler people.
Yeah. You only had to manage maybe a group of 10 or 20 friends as opposed to 200 on your Facebook and another 800 on your Instagram and stuff like
that. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things I was wondering is like, and this is a problem that I had to kind of overcome when I got into business. When I first started in business, I was super introverted. I was not great at like really, introducing myself to people. Once I got to know you, I was pretty good in conversation, but like actually starting that exchange was something that was really complicated to me. So what are some networking tips that you can give to somebody who probably doesn't network a lot and don't know whether or not they're actually good at it?
Well, that's a great question. And when I get out and speak with groups, that's a number one question that's asked. Now, the definition of an introvert is somebody who is not necessarily shy, but really kind of gets their power from being alone. And that's me, come the weekend, give me an iPad, a pair of headphones, and I'm fine. I don't need to go to a party. I will, but I don't need to. I would, but I really think that people who are introverts really have an advantage. And this is it. The people who are extroverts, the life of the party, whoever he or she is, we know who they are. You know who you are out there, right?
Yeah.
They need to be the center of attention, and they're talking, and so when you're talking, you're not listening. And, back to what I said before, you need to contribute to others. One of the best things that you can contribute to others is your attention. So the fact that you're not necessarily comfortable kind of carrying a conversation is a good thing. All you need to do is you need to arm yourself with a handful of open-ended questions to get that other person talking. And, that's, hey, what's your name? Oh, great. What do you do? How did you get into that? Tell me the story. And then when they start talking about the story, you can start a whole other conversation. So, for example, in Columbus, Ohio, not many people are from here. They've relocated here at one point or another for some reason. And I'll just find out where they're from. Oh, you moved here from Chicago? Oh, wow, that's great. What brought you here? And they'll talk about it. It's like, they'll tell the story, and then it might venture off into a whole nother conversation. Are you a Bears fan? Do you like sports? And that's what they love. So it's me asking these little questions and letting them tell the story. And I'll give you an example. There was I went to a networking function, and it had snowed here. Not a ton of snow, but it, just kind of that dusting where it's kind of an annoyance.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a challenge. You guys are up near Chicago. You get it, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of rolled in somewhat exasperated, and I, connected with just had met a woman for the first time. And I said, oh my gosh, can you believe this snow? And just kind of that, hey, what about the weather kind of a question. And she responded with, I figured she'd say, oh yeah, it's just horrible out there, and we'd have to figure something else out. But her response was, oh, I love the snow. I love to ski. My husband and I go skiing every weekend, Now I grew up in Michigan, and I know snow and I know skiing. Well, that allowed me then to ask, well, where do you like to go skiing? And she started talking about things, and I was somewhat conversant about it. And we were just I was letting her talk and tell stories. Well, how did you get in skiing? You're from Florida. How did this happen? And there was a story there. And so we went on and on and on. And then eventually what I did is I flipped it over to business by just saying, skiing's pretty expensive. What do you do to pay for it? And then she started talking about being a financial advisor. At no point did I pitch her, but I brought it over to business and allowed her to talk about being a financial advisor and how she got into that. And, again, just getting her talking. She probably thought I was super interesting because I was super interested in her. That's kind of a little bit of an irony. So you just be interested in them. And I don't want to spend too much time with one person, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes tops. At one point, I just said, wow, it's really been great talking to you. Listen, if you don't get hurt this weekend skiing, I would love to get a cup of coffee next week to continue this. So I've kind of reflected back on, I was listening to you, you're a skier, of course she got a chuckle out of it like you did. We set up coffee and took it from there. And it's not about pitching them at any point in time. It's just about getting them talking, and they get that warm and fuzzy feeling like somebody really cares about them. And I do. It's not, I was truly interested in her and in what she had to say. So, that's the trick, if you will, is really getting them talking.
And I love that piece of advice too, because